Enjoy a seat at the table and good company, where great conversations and discussions happen.
Welcome to And Good Company. I'm Sarah Fiedelholtz, a conversationalist. We all know that a great dinner party isn't really about the food. It's about the people sitting around the table having lively discussions and great conversation. Well, I'm excited to have Nancy Stewart at this table to have a lively conversation. Nancy Stewart is what I like to call a professional community volunteer. You are currently the chair of the Public Arts Commission, and you're a commissioner on the Indiana Arts Commission, as well as many other boards, which we will discuss. But welcome.
Thank you.
So I know that a lot of your volunteer work currently is in the arts, and that's been a focus of yours. But you've really been a volunteer since you moved to Fort Wayne in 1972, correct?
Correct.
And
certainly am.
So tell me about how you got so involved in becoming what I call a professional volunteer.
You're so sweet. And I'm delighted to be here. We moved here in 1972. At that time, we had no children. I had been volunteering when I met my husband in San Diego with the Junior League of Fort Wayne. And when we moved here, he wanted me to continue doing that kind of thing. I became very active with the Junior League, and I reflect back on that and some of the management skills and leadership skills that I learned there along the way. I served as president of that board or the Junior League in 1982 to 83. I then, and at the same time, began to dabble in different arts boards, the Philharmonic Board, the Art Museum. And then for a period of time while our boys were in school, I was very active with Canterbury School from the very beginning. I served on that board for, I hate to admit it, 30 years.
Wow.
And I chaired it for 8, but it was a wonderful experience. And I think when you talk about being a professional volunteer, a community volunteer, you learn from each experience you have. You learn from all the people you meet along the way.
Right.
And as you say, it's those conversations.
Right. Yeah. No, it's great.
Right.
But why is volunteering so important? Why do you think it's something that people need to do?
I feel it is what we give back to this wonderful community we live in. I know when I grew up in San Diego, it was not as easy to volunteer. When we moved to Fort Wayne, my feeling was if you would give an inch, they would take you a mile, and you could become involved in so many different kinds of things.
And did you grow up in a house where giving back and volunteering and participating in a community was emphasized or a focus?
Not in my family. It's something I think, having gotten involved with the Junior League, oh gosh, at age 20, that was a long time ago, that really is what began to inspire my interest to continue doing that.
And, part of some of the issues that we face today is looking at who are the young leaders and who are going to sit on these boards and take, these positions that a lot of what I like to call are the grand dames of Fort Wayne.
Right.
How do you think we're doing in terms of encouraging and getting younger people to be involved and recognize the importance of giving back to their community?
I think what has happened, and it's ironic that since 9/11, I think we found many young people hunkering down at home, realizing the value of spending that time with their children, where I might have been doing some volunteer work. I remember going to conferences and leaving my husband with 2 toddlers, and that was the best thing in the world for him, because I wasn't doing it, as I was blessed to be a stay-at-home mother, or however you wish to define that. And right now, I think it is those of us that have been in the volunteer world, it becomes our responsibility to begin to reach out and mentor young people. The Junior League used to be a terrific training ground for, part of its mission is to train volunteers to go out in the community, but many of them are taking the skills they learn there and going to the workforce.
Right.
So it is an issue here. I have several friends and young leaders of Northeast Indiana, I think, is an organization that's developing some great leaders. I know I have a friend with the Community Foundation, and we've talked about the importance of this and how we mentor and bring others along.
Right. And then, I mean, there's also the issue of how to, it's not just developing the leadership roles, but also how to be part of a community and the importance of giving back and recognizing that it's not, you just can't take everything.
You can't take everything.
Right.
But I have to say that I feel I've gained so much more than I've given.
That's usually what they say when it comes to volunteering and giving of your time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, it's the people I've met.
Right.
That I would not have met otherwise had I not been doing something.
Now, with an organization like Junior League and certainly other service entities, like the Rotary Club, Kiwanis,
Right.
I mean, they certainly are seeing a decline in membership or, not being in vogue because, millennials don't want to join any organization. And so, I mean, is the Junior League still, I mean, you don't hear very much about it in Fort Wayne anymore. Is it still a viable entity?
A viable entity, but junior leagues across the country are still trying to figure out how the best way to retain members is. Part of that's looking at the requirements of membership. I think what we're finding too is defining member. There are a lot of people, I mean, the auxiliary group, the Philharmonic Friends, for instance, and I've forgotten what the name of it is right now, but the museum had a counterpart, and it used to be a member of that, and you did all these fundraisers, and but people don't want to be a part of a member.
Right.
So
especially millennials. I mean, they don't even want to join country clubs or anything that's like a commitment.
It is a commitment. I think you're fine. And even at schools where the volunteers used to be so plentiful.
Right.
Are not. But I think the tide will turn on that.
Well, we're certainly seeing it. I mean, we were talking before the show that like with Alexander Hall, for instance, you're certainly seeing it, I think, much more on the art scene. And then with Dan Swartz from WonderCommer. I mean, you are seeing, I think, some stepping up there, by nature of artists wanting to, have be in the community and their work. So I think it is, but I don't think necessarily these organized entities, I think, are having a hard time. And I do think, though, that some of the arts organizations as well probably are suffering for their boards because, young people aren't even, they don't go to the Philharmonic. They don't go to the ballet. They don't even go to the theater. So how do you think that we need to, tell them about the arts and get them to see the value of it?
I think it's taking the mentoring and one by one, come and join me for this. Or I know there have been a couple, there was one board in particular, I will say it's the Philharmonic, which I have a real passion for, but I can't tell a right note from a wrong note. And I had a friend that I really admired and respected who asked me to become a part of it. And I hate to say, I did it more because I wanted to be with her. And I learned so much, and as a result, have now a real passion
for the Philharmonic. So, so I want to talk to you about the Public Arts Commission and how it's evolved. But first, because we're talking about public art, I know that there are lots of times issues that people talk about what is art and how do you define art. So using your art history major, you didn't know there was going to be a test.
I didn't know there was going to be a test.
I want to talk to you a little bit about how you see what art is, and then how, when the Public Art Commission did the initial research about how to go about creating this commission, how was the idea of what is art talked about?
Well, art is all in the eye of the beholder.
Right.
Some people love the Helmholtz sculpture at the museum, and some people cannot stand it. But I think when we're defining public art, And we wrestle with this, and we'll continue to wrestle with it. And I know we did when we were coming up with the guidelines for the Public Art Commission. It can be sculpture, it can be landscaping, it can be murals, it can be wrap utility boxes that have something special on it. It can be any kind of lighting enhancement.
It can be a performance, right?
Yes. And a performance, if you're doing it outside, becomes public art. But that is not something that the public art, I'm speaking in terms of what the public art
And
commission,
so you're really focused on artworks that are created, that are tangible,
created,
permanent, right?
that people can see basically 24/7.
Okay. And so when you, so was there a discussion about, because if it is public art, you need more of a consensus that, you know, you want more people to appreciate it than to sort of be like, you know, don't like it or what have you. So is there thoughts about that in terms of when you think about the type of public art that you're going to look to create?
Well, the Public Art Commission, if I can step back just a little bit and look at it from two different points of view. For instance, the art museum will put art outside, which for the most part is sculpture, and they make that decision. And that really is not a board decision, having been on that board. With the Public Art Commission, it was established as a partnership between Arts United and the city of Fort Wayne. And it came about because when the city gave some money for, you know, public art, sculpture, however you are going to define it, it was the planning department that was making the decision. Well, is that right or is that wrong? And the feeling from the city was that we really need a group to jury this, especially if we are spending taxpayers' dollars to do it. So that was the impetus behind the Public Art Commission. We do have review privileges or what we do is anything moving forward that is public property, public money, or public money on private property. So those are the things that we're involved with. And we set up a review committee with some pretty tough criteria. We don't want to be the police. There are many wonderful things that are going on in neighborhoods. I know there is a great a mural that was done on Fairfield, and that went through the Public Art Commission, not to say, I don't like this or I don't like that, but to say, you know, you might want to enhance this a little bit because there are muralists and artists on this review committee, but then to talk to them about how to do a mural. What kind of paint do they need to use?
Because those are the issues, like with the beautiful mural that Julia Meek did on the side of the Hyde Brothers, which I found when I was walking, and I felt like, oh, this needs some love. But part of the issue was at the time, I mean, that was one of the first murals, they didn't know how to treat the wall or the right type of paint. And
how to deal with the mortar in the walls, if it's a brick wall, and how to deal with, you know, so there are those things that we can be helpful for. In fact, the Public Art Commission has just finished its second year. So we are a work in progress. We're learning by doing. And one of the things that we want to establish is some resources that are available. In other words, if you want to do a mural.
Where to go,
where to go and what to do.
And I mean, let's talk a little bit about two things. One, the significance of the fact that the city decided that they wanted to invest and create this commission. What does that say about the city government and recognizing the importance of public art?
I think it says a whole lot. I think it says it, and art, as we know, does so much to promote quality of life in our communities. You think of even now people coming downtown to look at the murals,
Right.
for instance, that are going up. Now, those are not Public Art Commission, but that is Art This Way. And I think it says a lot. And especially if they are fortunate enough to be able to allocate some funds. We are funded by TIF dollars.
And TIF dollars are what?
Okay.
So they're the tax incremental financing. It's a give back program,
It's a give
right?
back program. In other words, for every $100 that they're given in TIF dollars, we get $1.
Okay. And the TIF dollars are typically from, like, is it from the hotels or is it?
It's
no?
from construction.
Okay. It's mostly from the developers,
For
right?
the developers,
Right. Okay.
correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So,
So
you get
we're not, and we received a gracious contribution from the Fort Wayne Community Foundation. And that allowed us to be able to go ahead and do our master plan.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the master plan. One of the things that you really did was you really reached out to the community, and you had over 2,000 residents who contributed to
Correct.
giving their input. What were some of the things that you found out or discovered that surprised you that were important, or what the community thought about art and public art?
Well, we were so pleased with the response that we certainly received. We had popsicle pop-ups on the parklet in 5
Say
different...
that 5 times fast.
I know, it's sort of like pick a peck of pickled peppers. So we ended up having, community conversations, community engagements in all 4 quadrants and then downtown. Because it's important to realize, too, that not only are we talking about doing things downtown, but one of our priorities and wanting to spend a significant portion of our funds is to get out into the neighborhoods.
Right. Well, we do have 300 of them. So,
yeah. And what are they asking? So you think of southwest, southeast, northeast, northwest, basically as being the 4 quadrants. And I think the thing that pleased us the most was how interested they were. And if I know that there are conversations when the neighborhood's representatives all get together.
Right.
But that they wanted murals, they want gateway kinds of markers or enhancements. I know it's fun to see West Central downtown now. They applied for a grant from the city and received funding to cover the utility boxes.
Right. And that gives it sort of a identifier of place.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I think that I've been looking at, and because I'm on a mission about neighborhoods in Fort Wayne and how people think about where they live, talking about the neighborhood and saying, just like in Chicago or New York, but it's very hard. Like, there's no identifiers. Like, Mount Vernon Park did some banners, but South Wayne has this little tiny sign, and then Renaissance Point, you can't even find it. Yeah. So I think like some of those things that could be creatively done to designate the different neighborhoods and identifiers and things like that, I think would be a good way. And maybe it's not art in the traditional sense of a mural, but it can be.
But it is art in its own.
Right.
And that's it. It's so hard to define what is art, what is not art.
Right.
But, you think of the markers in and out of the city.
Yeah.
I know one of the things that came out of it that I thought was fun was we should do something over the bridges over 69. And I don't know, the place I have noticed them the most is Bloomington, where you can see what they've done.
Right.
And that was a surprise, I think, that came out of the planning process. But, I don't know if you want me to get into some of the elements that were in that plan.
Well, we talked about, there's obviously was the open walls.
The open walls,
which
correct.
is and it's a public-private partnerships for the murals. And then you actually worked with me on a private mural program with Jiffy Lube. And they have this really incredible
amazing program.
And they're now up to, they have 15 in Indianapolis, and now we have two.
Two.
But they donate and pay the artists a living wage to create the murals on the sides of their buildings because they recognize that the majority of their customers are women.
Yeah.
And so, but what the president and CEO was telling us, Steve Sander, was that it's not just for the customers, that he was surprised how many of the workers, who you typically, what's your stereotype of someone who works changing oil.
Right.
But they were interested in art, or they couldn't pursue their arts because, they had to, take care of their family. Right. And so really that engagement of the art as well. So that's one program, right, is the working on the open walls.
Well, and open walls, too, is an opportunity for, I don't want to call them street artists. I don't want to call them graffiti at all, because they're amazing.
Well, graffiti is considered an art form.
And it is.
I mean,
yeah. And we have a man by the name of Francisco Ruiz, I believe. He goes by Paco. And we were able to get him a wall on Central Street and Southeast. I think Central Street, and then I think the Central Building. Okay. So I've got to get those straight. And he is going to organize. He was going to do it this year, but everything looks a little different this year.
Right.
So he's going to open up a portion of this wall and let people come and paint on it. But then he's organizing a festival next year for people to come in from surrounding communities. And we're excited about giving people that opportunity. As they said, they'd rather ask permission than ask for forgiveness.
Right. That makes sense. I don't want to feel that they're defacing property. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you're now involved with this Faces of the Fort.
Faces of the Fort.
So what is that project?
Faces of the Fort is an opportunity to recognize those that have made marks in Fort Wayne on civil rights and equal. And it's so exciting to see. Raina Bradley is chairing that.
And she's also on the Public Art
Commission.
She sat at this table.
Yeah. And I don't know if she shared that.
Not much about, we were talking about more architectural background and what she's done, like to create that space, that sort of stage space in Mount Vernon Park. And
And we have identified a wall southeast and northeast. And what we are doing with that then have gone out and reached out for stories and had a number of people. I mean, I think she had more than 25 or 6 people that contributed stories. And then we have selected the 2 artists and hoping to maybe do it this year, but thinking it's probably going to be next year.
So you're planning for
Exactly. And these will be, of course, the faces of these people, a little bit then in the mural of what they've done. And what we want to do with everything, and I'm saying this unequivocally, that we want to make it accessible to everybody.
Okay, right. Which is partly what the murals, in a sense, like when I was thinking about this show and talking to you, I noticed that it's not just Fort Wayne. I mean, there is a mural movement in cities all over the country. And partly one of the things that they say why the murals are so popular is because they take away that class barrier of thinking about going to a museum or
walking in a museum,
a gallery, or
But how we also want to be able to make it. I mean, there's a wonderful mural someone shared with me in Florida where it puts out a smell and it makes noises, and you can do a thing and it'll explain what the mural is to you.
Or the one in Millennium Park in Chicago where it's the water, but it's the photos that keep changing of the people.
Or where it's raised and so that disabled people can enjoy it as much as we do. And I think that's equally as important.
So, but do you think that, when they talk about, some of what the murals do is they talk about that the importance of public art in terms of quality of place. But in some ways, that's difficult to assess, I think. But how do you?
Don't ask me to assess.
No. But I mean, do you think though that these types of projects and initiatives and having public art from the research for the plan, does that help with economic development?
Yes, it does. And
I mean, one of the things I noticed when I first came to Fort Wayne, I noticed how brown, like downtown, it's very brown.
Brown, yes.
So it's nice that now they sort of are brightening it up with color.
Brightening it up with color.
And I was listening to a report about the fact that there's color therapy and that different colors evoke different moods. So I was thinking that, well, now that I can't say that downtown Fort Wayne looks so brown anymore, there should be lots of happy people.
Lots of happy people, that's right. And I think also Promenade Park has done a lot. And that sculpture there, that's Promenade Park by Linda Howard out of Florida, was the first project we did as a public art commission.
And so you're also, how do you think that Fort Wayne, with the city, I mean, we're a little late to the table of creating a public arts commission, but from your research, because when you were looking at the creation of the master plan and figuring out what the best practices, you did look at what other cities and places were doing.
Yeah, we looked, oh my gosh, read many ordinances, many guidelines, and tried to piece together what we thought would be the best for Fort Wayne.
Right.
We spent about 2 years doing that.
And you also brought in, I was really interested, the firm you brought in, Designing Local.
Well, okay, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that these were architects who, from what I understand when I talked to the owner of the firm,
Amanda,
when she went to she was working in an architect firm, and she went to her boss and said that she thinks that they really needed to create a division that looked at public art and creating it as part of the community so that it's not in the planning department.
Right.
And her boss said, no, there was no need for that. It's not that important. So she and another partner, they went out and started this firm. And they're one of like only 3 in the country that is an architect firm, but they really specialize on how to incorporate and really create a community engagement and support for the public art.
There were 2 processes a little bit. When the city came to Arts United, and this had to have been, I think it was in 16.
Yeah, maybe. I think it was 2015. That was 16 when you started doing the analysis.
And then what we did is we started looking at public art commissions all across the country. Believe it or not, we are one of, I think, 4 in Indiana. So in many communities, they're going through what we have been through. I think my dream is that people will be looking to us to establish theirs. Then we spent a lot of time, we cultivated the city council members. And then we decided, yes, we did need a funding mechanism, and worked through that. I remember saying, okay, we are going to do this. And we were able to get it passed with funding the first time around. And we were so excited about that. But what it is they basically passed a public art program that is administered by the Public Art Commission. So we had to come up with then a public art program. And that's when we looked at several different companies. One of them was Designing Local. There was one up north that we'd heard. We heard him speak about public art at an Indiana Arts Commission meeting. And then there was a third one in California. And we interviewed all of them. And Designing Local had a little spunk. I think I can share this because I'm of the more mature generation. That there was a more mature, but our feeling was we were going to go with youth and enthusiasm because this was going to be here for the youth of Fort Wayne.
Right, because the master plan is something you put in place. It's just like the all-in Allen County plan. I mean, this master plan is meant to be, was put in place for the next, I think you have, I think it's beyond 2031. I mean, you sort of have the short term.
We have 2-year goals, 3-year, 5-year. And so much of that depends on funding.
Right.
And or leveraging the funds that we get through the Give Back program to be able to fundraise again. And we have had some people make wonderful contributions. We've been contacted by some people who really want to see a discovery trail. And so all we can do is as much as we can. We're limited by manpower and money.
Right. There's no limit to the ideas.
Right. And once again, going back to how we started before, this is going to be a way to get some other younger people involved as we set up selection committees and review committees moving forward. And we're seeing that.
Right. So let's take a little bit of a step back to a little bit of a bigger playing field that you also work on, which is with the Indiana Arts Commission. So explain how that works and how the funding and grants that does to help support not necessarily, this is your role not in public art, but in arts in general. In Northeast Indiana.
Yeah. The Indiana Arts Commission is a state agency. We have 15, I get it confused between the Art Commission, commissioners on the commission that are representative from all over the state. We meet quarterly, and we are given funds through the General Assembly and also from the National Endowment for the Arts.
Okay.
And it is our responsibility then to pass those along to the citizens of Indiana. And we do that through a granting process. We give arts organizational support, we refer to it now. Arts project support, and then we have several other different categories. And this is where organizations fill out a form, and we go through a real evaluation process and look at criteria.
Oh, no, I served on
yes, you did.
One of the grant committees for it's 2021.
Right.
And no, I was really impressed of how serious it was and how what they have to fill out and what you're evaluating and what you're looking at.
And once again, we are spending public dollars.
Right.
So we are accountable to the public. I think one of our objectives as well is trying to get monies out in every county. And I remember how excited Louis Rickey, who's the executive director, was when he said, we did it. We got into all 92 counties.
Of Indiana.
And that's saying quite a bit. And then we have some categories where, it'll be different kind of artists, the dances and the musicians.
And performances. And
exactly. And right now, that's even more important.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say now I think we recognized a couple of things about the arts. One is the issue that so many artists are either majority is self-employed or, they only have part-time employment.
Exactly.
So, where's their security when their jobs went away?
Yeah. And that's one of the things, too. I have to admire Arts United, who partnered with the Community Foundation to be able to do some artist relief.
Well, you're on the board also, aren't you, of Arts United?
Yes, I am. Okay. Yeah. And how they have, Arts United has come up with a resiliency plan, and it, instead of different organizations and foundations responding to everybody, they have made significant contributions, almost in the neighborhood of almost now $3 million, and that will be distributed to over 18 different organizations.
Right. And so do you think that even on the state level, because of COVID and the need for those funds to help people just live and survive, do you think that we're going to see, it wouldn't be for 2021 because those funds have already been allocated, right? But do you think in 2022 we're going to see a decline in the amount of funds? Yeah.
I think it's pretty public knowledge for the Indiana Arts Commission. We had to take a 15% cutback.
Right.
And it will be, I was on an Arts Commission, the Indiana Arts Commission call this morning, and it's a situation where as commissioners, we cannot advocate for our own money.
Right. Oh, I see.
In other words, as a member of the Indiana Arts Commission, you
Okay.
cannot advocate for your own money. But we have a little network that we're working on here.
Okay.
And until last year, we had been getting increases. And hopefully, we will return
Right.
to that.
Right.
I mean, COVID is going to get behind us
At some point,
at some point.
but it's going to change everything. I mean,
Well, and some of the things that's going to change are going to be for the best. I can't give any specifics right now, except for the fact that let no crisis go without reward.
right.
And there are things in several organizations that we really had on the radar for 5 years from now, 10 years from now. All that's being expedited.
Oh,
Because on the other side of this, and that's part of the resiliency program, I know on the state level, we're
Right.
getting ready to develop a new strategic plan, and that will look different.
and that is that part of your work on the Legislative Arts Advocacy Council?
That is, the Indiana Arts Commission has put together a group of 12 citizens from around the state and 12 legislators
Okay.
from the state, 6 senators and 6 House representatives. And that group is working to educate the legislators about the needs and wants for the arts.
And is it surprising to you? I mean, certainly that you've been so involved with the arts and you're an art history major
Right.
and, love of art, that you have to advocate for the arts?
It does surprise me. Because I've been in the arts pretty much my entire life.
Right.
But it's like anything else. This isn't a lobbying group. So much becomes educating them about the economic impact of the arts and what they do.
And why do you think, though? I mean, obviously, being an art history major, you were a liberal arts, college. So, with this whole approach to STEM, and we're sort of now they've added the STEAM, right?
Yeah.
So that's for the arts because they realize that we can't just be a society of scientists, technicians, and mathematicians because you need the creativity, aspect of it. But why do you think that in school funding or even community funding, the first things to go are always the arts and music programs where they've proven that students who learn the piano, there is a correlation to them doing better at math and being able to, critically think and be creative and problem solve. I mean, those are skills that you need for anything. Why do you think there is still this, that those are the easiest programs that we can get rid of?
I think that's why we need to continue to advocate and educate. It's interesting when you think about Fort Wayne, and I'm not going to give a percentage because I won't have it right. But there are as many, if not more, people in the involved in the creative sector as there are in real estate, construction, banking, and there's a fourth one.
A lot of the professional. I mean,
if you add all that,
contributing $26.2 billion to the overall state economy.
Exactly.
So, I mean, and people don't realize it's not just, when you look at people in the creative arts, it's not literally just the artists themselves, but all the people behind that. So the people who run the theaters and the marketing firms.
The people who run the theater and the marketing firms and so much now in computer technology.
Right.
And that's all the creative side.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you just can't, you can't not have that. Yeah. And so do you think that with the impact of COVID, do you think that we're going to see that there's not going to be some arts organizations or reforming organizations, nonprofits that are going to be able to be resilient and make it?
There will be some that will not make it.
Mm-hmm.
That came up in the conversation this morning, that they were pleased with how many, because what we did is we gave grants for this year, and some were for projects that are not going to happen. So we've needed to, once again, being responsible for
Right.
public funds, but they were really pleased with the number that have not.
Mm-hmm.
I think we might begin to see some merge. It will probably be a long time, or at least a year, before we'll take off our masks and fill up the Embassy Theater
Right.
for a Philharmonic concert.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And, you know, then, okay, when those come back, how different are, I mean, things will be different.
Right.
And I hope we can continue to have the attitude that we will come out of this bigger and better.
So what are some of the things that you're seeing, both locally and then also from the Indiana Arts Commission? What are some of the innovative things that people in arts organizations are doing to respond and be resilient to the situation we're in?
I think we have all, like we all Zoom all the time, I think people have learned how to take a lot of what they're doing online. And we're hearing more and more about people doing that.
Right. I'm just concerned that, you know, there was all the movement before COVID of millennials who just hunker down at home and, you know, following the hiving, you know, Danish of just being at home and, you know, and not going out and not wanting to necessarily go to exhibits or performances. And so now I just feel that, is it that habit really being intensified, that they're not going to see a need to go out and interact and engage?
I think they might see even more of a need to get out and interact once everybody's been hunkered down. You go and do a virtual tour, let's say, of the museum or something at ArtLink, you're going to want to go down and see that.
Although I'll admit that I loved it that they opened up to so many of the museums around the world, or I like that so many, I mean, the problem I have is there's so many like lectures and conferences that they've opened up and they made them free. But you know, you can't like do it all. But I like that you've been able, that they brought that.
And they have.
That I think is really.
And they have brought that. It's going to be how to get people back in the door.
Right. And
until we have the answers.
Right. So we have to do everything modified and adjusting.
We just have to realize.
Right.
We have to realize the situation and deal with it the best we can.
Right, and sort of go with the requirements. But let's talk a little bit about the idea that Fort Wayne has this arts campus and what that creates. Is that, based on your work with the Indiana Arts Commission, is that a common thing that cities our size have, this significant downtown campus?
I would say, I'm trying to think, Columbus has kind of an artsy, campusy area. But I think this is unique to Fort Wayne. I wouldn't say unique. I think we are very fortunate to have it.
Right.
I think it goes back to Louis Kahn and the designing that they had for not only the Louis Kahn building, but it was a whole...
There were 9 buildings that they were going to do. Yeah. Right.
I remember the excitement when the museum moved there from West Central, and that added another element. When we had the opportunity to purchase what is now the Our Center, and how excited we were about that, and creating this kind of campus feel. And I'll never forget going down one night and something was going on at ArtLink and there was something at the museum and there was something, and I thought, this is really great. And that's kind of the synergy. Or you're down there at ArtLink, for instance, and then all these little kids who are taking ballet come by, and that's been fun.
Right. And you talked, when you and I have talked, you know, several times, and not here officially, but you know, you talked about this idea of also an art corridor. What does that mean versus the difference between having a campus, and why is that important?
Well, for instance, the Indiana Art Commission will recognize you. I'm having brain freeze. If you're thinking of an art corridor, what you might want there is maybe artists in residence that are there, some more shops, some more foodie kind of things. Right now, we're pretty much performance spaces.
Right.
So it's developing an art community.
Yeah, because I always say that one of the problems is that there's nothing, after you go to a performance, like, you don't want people just then to get in their cars.
Right.
But there's nowhere to go to walk around or see.
And I think, and that's the kind of thing.
Right.
That,
although we're starting that a little bit with the landing, because there is an opportunity there to create this pedestrian area.
And that's what, that is in progress at the moment.
Right.
And it's called, the Indiana Arts Commission established a category called cultural districts. And we have applied to become one. But because we don't have this kind of corridor concept, which I understand.
Right. Which might help downtown. I mean, they're doing a lot to try to connect, like the landing to the arts campus, and to make that connection. And,
right. And I think if we can do that.
So if COVID-19 was off the table and your funds were a little bit, not as limited, what are some of the things that you hope, or what are your ideas about how we can move into the future and continue to support arts and culture in our community?
And from the Public Art Commission point of view,
it could be from the Public Art Commission, and then it could be from a private citizen, and then it could be however you want.
Well, I think you're talking about things being brown.
Yeah.
I love what I'm seeing happening downtown.
Yeah.
And I certainly want to do what I can. To make that.
Yeah. And I think how you see, like, one of the direct impacts of economic development is the gentleman who has the pedicab.
Right.
So it's a bicycle, but it's little. So it can go through the alleys. And he's created these art tours for like $20. He'll take you all over the place.
Yeah.
So he was, innovative in creating a business around
that.
Seeing the...
And that's what we'll begin to see more of. I think that's my dream. You want to see that. You want to see those buildings that are down, be it a mural, be it a, we do have the bike sculptures that are certainly all over town right now. And you still want to see things continue to thrive. I mean, the Art Museum's getting ready to celebrate its 100th anniversary, and I'm really excited about a couple things that are happening with that. I'm just saying, stay tuned, because it's going to be great. And I think it's each small step that we take. And I'm excited from the Public Art Commission's point of view of what we can get out and do in our neighborhoods.
Well, that's great. Well, we're going to sort of leave it there for now, and you'll have to come back to keep us posted. But at the end of each And Good Company program, I ask guests the same 12 questions that French novelist Marcel Proust popularized from a Victorian parlor game. And Proust believed that by answering these questions, a person reveals his or her true nature. So here is for Nancy.
Oh, dear.
What is your favorite word?
My favorite word? Best.
What is your least favorite word?
My least favorite word? Anything negative.
What turns you on? I think I'll know the answer to this one, but creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
What creatively?
What turns you on? Creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
What it is? I'm a pretty spiritual person. The opportunity to be creative.
Okay. What turns you off? Creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Negativity.
What sound or noise do you love?
Music.
What sound or noise do you hate?
I don't hate
Okay.
anything.
Now we're going to put this in the auspice that your being a community volunteer is a profession. So what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
What other profession would I teach.
What profession would you not like to do?
Anything with numbers.
Well, that's pretty important. You're on the business side of looking at arts organizations.
I know, but I can handle that. I mean, I wouldn't want to do accounting or banking or that. That's what I mean.
What do you consider your greatest achievement?
I would have to say getting Canterbury School to where it was. Right now, to getting the Public Art Commission off the ground.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It isn't something that I have achieved.
Well, you got it created.
Created.
So that's
And
a big
I think
start.
one of the things we didn't even get into this side of is that I just completed 3 years as chair of the Visiting Nurse Foundation Board as an infancy. And that I felt the accomplishments in getting that off the ground and where it should be.
So all of your give back in public community
Yeah.
service. Okay. Who, living or dead, would you most like to have a conversation with?
My mother,
How would you like to die?
quickly.
And if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
A job well done.
Well, I want to thank you, Nancy, for coming and having a conversation with me about what's happening with arts and culture and how important it is to the well-being of our community. So I really appreciate that.
Well, and thank you for having me. This has
No.
been fun.
Oh, good. And I really just appreciate it. And keep us posted when you can share some more details with us.
I will. I
Okay.
promise.
All right. And please join me next time when you can again enjoy a seat at the table for great conversation and good company.